Ryan, thank you so much for jumping on the AIM podcast.
Good to be here with you, man.
I'm excited by this one. I don't know if you can tell, I actually just worked out and I was like, man, I don't have a ton of time before we start recording. So I took a cold shower, hoping that it would completely stop my sweat. And I'm still sweating a little bit. So I need the cold plunge. The shower didn't do it.
It wake you up a little though, right before.
It did do that, man. I remember I played college basketball, but prior to that in high school, I would work out at 5 in the morning at my high school, and I would have class right after our workouts that were done, and I would always be in a full sweat. I tried to take a cold shower, and I remember I always had English first, and I'd get to class and I'd feel great, and then about 3 minutes into class, my arms would just start dripping. I was like, no, it's tough.
Gotta cool that. Dude, I can relate, man. Get that California. I'm out here in California. I get the California heat. If I don't, I mean, sometimes I'll even jump in the plunge, and if I don't go long enough, I'll still get out and be warm. So I get it, man.
How hot is it there now?
Right now, it's a beautiful day today. We're probably in the 80s, but we had a few days ago, we were hitting the triple digits. So, yeah, it was toasty. But right now, today's perfect California day.
But the thing, you guys don't have as much humidity, right?
No,
That.
we're the dry heat. We
Yeah.
are the dry heat. So it's, I mean, that's the thing that not as much here. You go into Arizona, everyone always, that's like the brag part. It's like, yeah, it's 115, but it's dry heat. It's like it's still 115 degrees. But yeah, I mean, Sac, we can get into that 105 range, and it can get toasty, but we
that,
don't got
that
humidity.
that's definitely the perception of someone that's grown up and lived on the East Coast my entire life. Like everyone's always like, "Oh, the West Coast is like hot," but it's not that hot because it's not humid. But it really is still that temperature. So
Oh, it could get, yeah, totally. Especially where we're at in the parts of California, it's it cranks.
I love it, man. What's your favorite tattoo? I know this is very off topic, but I'm just curious.
Favorite tattoo that I have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question, man. Man, they all carry really significant meanings. I know some people, for me, my tattoos tell a story. So they all, it would be hard pressed for me to pick one. They all, I could share a lot of meaningful, each one has a lot of meaning to me. So I'm gonna cop out of that question.
No worries. I love it. All right, man. Well, I'm excited to have this conversation with you, this episode. You know, you come to this with an incredible company that I'm excited to talk about, but also just a wealth of knowledge on this particular topic of what you guys do, which I think is something that can help a ton of people, and that is cold water therapy. And obviously, there's probably even more to that that you can elaborate on. But even before we dive into that, I'd love to hear more about kind of your upbringing, your background, especially for the context of just how you got to where you are now.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I grew up here locally in Sacramento. Grew up in this region, not far from where I'm at now. Had a really good upbringing. Great parents, they love me. That's the one thing I always look at. You know, everyone has challenges in life. My parents like instilled love in me, and so that's been like I'm not. I'm that's my gratitude. That's the thing that pushed me forward, and I've felt that and been that way. And then for me, I, always had a curiosity. I went away to college and then, moved out of Sacramento and said, I'll never move back to Sacramento. I'm done with that place, and went off on my, 12-year journey of, went to college, moved abroad lived in Madrid, Spain for a couple of years, and came back and, moved back to the States to actually get involved in soccer. I grew up playing soccer. That was like a big sports guy growing up. Soccer was one of, my main thing. Same thing. When I was 18, I was done with the sport, and I was just like, I don't ever want to touch a soccer ball again. I was like, going to go play in college, and I was just burnt out. And I was like, no, I'm done. I didn't touch a ball for like 4 or 5 years. Moved to Madrid and just got so fell back in love hard in a way that I never had. I was playing all the time out there, and so then I wanted to move back to the States to get involved in soccer in the United States because I saw it as like this huge startup. It was just like, it was exciting to me. So I moved back and actually got a job with the San Jose Earthquakes in Major League Soccer. And that was kind of my entry and my first career position, business position, and had a lot of good mentorship in that company. And, then the next passion showed up, which was I really got into float tanks and sensory deprivation. So that's when I quit that job. And actually that's when I decided to move back to Sacramento and come back to my roots, and launched my first company there with Capital Floats. And it's been, thankfully been successful and been a real like pillar in the Sacramento community, and we have 2 locations now. And then that kind of catapulted me into Plunge. Met my co-founder Mike, who also owns a float centers in the Bay Area. We got to know each other through that process, and that was the natural. It just, through the story, which we could jump into, of kind of like us shutting our businesses down with the float centers. We ended up having to shut those down during COVID. That hits, we're brick and mortar businesses. That presented time to actually build the Plunge. And then we decided to do like, let's go in together. Let's sell these to our float centers and tell them what we've been up to. And then that's, about 21 months ago now. Now we're on our 7th facility, shipped thousands of units around the world. And it's really become an actual, like, really, really fun, strong business. That's kind of where I'm at today.
That's incredible, man. Where did you first have that initial itch of entrepreneurship and just trying to get into business? I knew you referenced the job of the soccer team. But was there something growing up? Was there like a side hustle? Was there some story where you kind of felt that first itch of like, I want to do this?
It's a good question, man. I've always kind of wanted to do things my own way, for better or worse. It's kind of like beat to my own drum. Like that's always, so I don't put it like in a business entrepreneurship, but I've, starting the float center, that was a mix of like a really deep calling to me of like, outside of, it penciled and I did the business plan, so this seems like a solid business. It was more of like, this is like, I want to share this with the world. Like, I don't even like, it'd be cool if I just broke even. Like, I'll just do this. And so that like drove, but it was also different. I like doing things that I like finding the things that are impactful that maybe haven't really been discovered yet, hence Plunge, hence Capital Float. So I think that's kind of been my entrepreneurship and, developing business tactics along the way and business acumen. But, I think it's a question I think about. I didn't grow up with like a suit, I did lemonade stands, I did the stuff, but I wasn't like super big hustler.
You weren't a young Gary V.
Yeah, no, I didn't have the Gary V vibe. It's funny. My dad, who was like, he had one job his whole life. He was a sales guy, worked his job, successful with it, but literally the same position since I was born till when he retired. Wow. But he was the one with the side hustles. I mean, this was the cat that was selling Beanie Babies. Like, he would buy, my dad was super into sports memorabilia. So I grew up watching that. Like, my dad would be out on Sundays at the flea market selling Beanie Babies when the hype was happening. This guy's raking, he's making money. This is back in the early 90s. Sports memorabilia, I would go with just shows with him around mostly the Western US, and he'd have his dealers that were, in his house, our house was filled with like, Joe Montana stained jersey, Shaquille O'Neal game shoe, like, Babe Ruth baseball, like all the stuff that's like, true artifacts. He would be into like he'd study players and be like, this, I have a feeling this player. So he'd like, he was big on Braun rookie cards, like back, and knew which ones were minted and how to do it. And then, he's gotten into Luka now. So he invests in these players and like buys these cards through certain channels. So from an entrepreneurship standpoint, like I kind of watched him, even though he had like his regular job before it. I always look back, like, I think my dad would have crushed with the internet, like with Instagram and stuff like that. He didn't have that. So I do think there's some ethos of in the family of, entrepreneurship and some hustle dynamics.
I love it. What's his position on NFTs? Has he stepped into that world or not?
No, that's like, he's still buying gold and silver and he's doing that game. He doesn't quite understand that. So yeah, not quite his realm, but he would have been, if he was 20 years younger, I think he would have been gobbling all that up.
I love it, man. Now, one thing you said that really stuck out to me, and I think it's super important to talk about, is like you pursued these 2 businesses with a passion, a calling, something that was driving a force to help people to explore this idea and try to, reach more lives with what you're doing instead of chasing the money. And I think that is something that's not talked about a lot, but I think successful entrepreneurs that kind of have that as their priority in terms of their attack and their approach with their venture, I think is really interesting to see how one they're doing currently, but where it's going to pan out. Because I think it's you can only go but so far when you're consumed in the wrong things. But when you're vision driven and passion driven to be fulfilled, I think that's when things can get crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where it's like, I think that this is discussed a lot. Like, should you chase your passion? I know a lot of entrepreneurs I look up to that's like, don't chase your passion. Like solve a problem. I think luckily my passions were also problems to be solved. And so I think a lot of times our passions are kind of general things. Our passion's music. Well, music's really saturated. Like what is music? How do you, so I think you kind of have to find something that you care about. And then, what is the problem within that world? And that to me is, kind of when you can align those two, then you got something special. Then there's constant challenges. There's actually going to be some product market fit, or a service fit into what's needed, and you care, and it matters into doing it correctly and making an impact with it.
100%. No, I agree. I think that's super interesting. What did the early days look like for you guys? Kind of obviously you come up with the idea. I know you referenced your co-founder. What did that look like to get this thing off the ground? What were some early phases of the business, and how did you guys get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so you kind of see this picture behind me. I don't know, it might be blurry. It's like a garage. So it's us in the garage. So, how it started was we were building out of Mike's garage. He happened to move to Sacramento kind of serendipitously, like from the Bay Area. So we were in the same location, and he had developed this product to a spot that was it was like a good enough product that we felt confident to like, okay, this is a cool product. This is worth it. We're confident with this, but we were still really new with it. So we decided, let's email our companies. I emailed Capital Floats, which was my float spas. He emailed Reboot and Float Cryo. And we emailed them and said, hey, we're going to sell 20 of these. Who wants to buy 20 of our units? We're going to, we knew they were going to be Northern California based. So we were going to be able to hand deliver them. We didn't have to deal with the shipping. We could go hand them off and work with our customers directly and see what that's like. So those were the early days. It was literally Mike and I in the garage, cutting PVC pipe, building these cold plunges, throwing them in the back of the van, driving down to San Francisco, me on the phone. We had our customer service sales line on the website going straight to my cell phone. Oh yeah, we're Plunge, and having the conversation, taking a sale, sending in the Shopify invoice. Okay, cool. And then hopping out, taking this person, setting their unit up. Then, Mike's on an inventory, trying to buy some inventory for it. Then we're running to the bathtub place to get our tubs in. So, we're wearing all hats at this point. We're trying to run the social media. It was truly just him and I running this whole thing. And then we just, we've definitely done it a way of, it's a bootstrap business. We haven't brought in outside investment, and we've made the next hire. The manager at Capital Floats we needed a spot. We need some help building these things. Well, my manager at Capital Floats, her partner, he was like a dude that worked on cars that wasn't stoked on his job. I'm like, Jay, can you come down and you want to start building cold plunges? Like, I don't even know what that is. I'm down. Building cold plunges. And then it's like, we're building his garage. The garage is getting a little small. Mike's wife was getting a little frustrated, with everything, she was super cool and supportive, but we're getting small in there. So we're dropping off one of the plunges in Sacramento. And the guy's like, this guy owns 3 bike shops in Sacramento. He's like, I got a little backspace in my bike shop that was bigger than the garage. He's like, you guys want to rent it month to month? We're like, do you have water? He's like, yeah, I think I got water. So we were hooking a hose up to the sink in the bathroom and running water into the back of the bike shop. And we'd build plunges there. And then we moved into our next facility. So we've kind of done things as the next item up. It hasn't been, we're finally at a spot now where we're doing a lot. We always had a big vision with it. We knew there was early on, there was a fit with this product and there was an interest, but now we're much more into strategic building of the company. Where are we? What's our 12? What's our 18 months? What's our 3 years? Now we're there. When we were starting out, it was, what do we need to do today? And maybe let's think about tomorrow. It's that was really the extent of it, and just kind of building and slowly but surely building the team. And so yeah, it's been a super organic build. I can't say that we we had big aspirations, but we have definitely, and it's grown so quick. So we haven't even had time to really sit down, and like, we didn't have time to like sit down and plan it out. So it's been a very organic build with the whole company since day one.
That's awesome, man. I think it's super interesting when you talk about just the daily, just getting like what needs to be done for that day and moving forward. It's fun to hear because like from my perception of the company, you guys are crushing it. I'm friends with Devin, so I was in Devin's his Plunge a couple
Yep.
weeks ago and at his house, and that was my first experience physically in person with the Plunge. I thought it was amazing, and he obviously swears by. He puts it on his story every day.
Yeah, Devin's a man. Devin's all about it. He eats it up.
So when you guys were designing the actual tub itself, like were you going through different types of tubs, like different, like coming up with the actual design and structure and tech and everything that went into that process? Like, how did you guys go about that?
I mean, I give a lot of credit to my co-founder, Mike. I mean, he's the engineer, he's the product genius. He, he had the chest freezer. Mike's the type, like, before he started a float center, he built a float tank like in his garage. He had the chest freezer that people were building, and but he was kind of, everything was on the market was like pretty high price. And he's like, this just doesn't really make sense. So he started 3D mapping the whole thing, sourcing the products. And then he was kind of mad scientist building it out of the garage. He's got a really good eye for design. So I think he naturally he did lean to this like white, sleek, hard edge tub like early on. And we like that style because it's just comfortable in a plunge. In a plunge, it's like you're going through breath work, you're trying to surrender into the cold. The more you fight it, the more intense it becomes. Well, to be in a tub like that with length that you can actually like release your body, like stretch your body out, we found to be really important, and be like ergonomically comfortable, and you have a backrest. And so that was like, it's not remake the wheel. This is how bathtubs have been. Like there's a reason that's a thing. So we looked at that, and then, from the engineering side, a lot of that came from our time with float tanks. So he was able to understand like water filtration, swirling methods, like how you want to move water, how you want to filter it, what type of filters need to be used, ozone, UV, like what's effective, what's not. And then the real trick was, how do you get the water cold? So, you throw all those things in, and he was working, he was traveling around, meeting up with different people, learning different ins and outs of it, and just kind of, was truly self-taught into what it was happening. It's not like we hired some major, engineering firm to help us with the design, or and with that, we've learned, the product that we have today is different than the product we had, a year ago, or, even 8 months ago. We learn little things along the way, like, oh, okay, this 1-inch tube needs to be 3/4 because it creates better flow for the system, or it helps the pump in this position, or, little subtle things that we make little iterations. So, units are subtly different over time. And that's just through, learning and getting real-time data from customers.
Of course, I think that makes a lot of sense. So you guys obviously are focusing or spending time trying to sell these units, obviously, but you're also at the same time simultaneously trying to constantly improve them and find more ways to make the product even better.
100%. I mean, that's been the unique decision that we made early on, which I'm really grateful we did. But a lot of times it's like, especially for an e-commerce company, it's like you create the product, then you find someone you can go build it, and then you kind of outsource the building process. Well, we went the uphill battle, not for, we were conscious of this decision. Like we were kind of like, we were engaging with people like, hey, can you build this product, and kind of outsource the building process? Well, it ended up being that, starting with that day one where we called Jay and said, hey, can you build plunges? It's like, we've created a manufacturing company. Like that's really what's there. So we have this, our company is, sales, marketing, events, this whole side to it, customer service that's there. And then we are a full-fledged out this door in our facility. We have, a massive warehouse where tubs are being built, inventory is being shipped in, it's all under one roof. So we're, I think, a fairly unique company for an e-commerce side that it's, you know, to build a brand and be in charge of the manufacturing, I think is, you know, it's rare. It's more rare than we realized. And so, but it's allowed us to learn about the product. Like we weren't ready to really actually outsource the building when we were early on in the process. So I'm grateful we did it. We kept it in house and we've learned our product, you know, through and through.
No, that's super powerful. I think that's really interesting. As you guys gained some momentum, you had the opportunity to take this idea to Shark Tank. What was that experience like? How did that even come about? Like, how do you even get onto Shark Tank, and how did that all go?
So Shark Tank was last summer. They reached out to us, which was, you know, wasn't on our radar. And we got that email and we're like, they just asked us, are you guys interested? Would you be interested in applying? It wasn't like, hey, we want you to be on the show. It was, are you guys interested in a phone call? We got on a call. They were really intrigued. And then it was, yeah, we'll apply. So we went through the application process, you know, Shark Tank calls, you take the call. And so we were on that, and we ended up going on late September of last year was when we filmed the show. And so that was, you know, magical, wild experience of being out with the sharks and, you know, show. I didn't watch it a ton growing up, but it was a show that, you know, everyone knew. And I've watched a number of episodes, so to actually be out there was radical experience. And then, you know, here we are, it aired beginning of May here in 2022. So that's how it came about. And then, yeah, man, it was a really exciting, unique experience for us.
How nervous were you to give the pitch?
Very. Yeah, I mean, we prepped a lot. You know, I remember Mike and I would go get Airbnbs and just go take off and just like work on our pitches and like, you know, dig in, and we would, you know, game film, just watch all the episodes and mark down the amount of questions that they were like, okay, they've asked this question this amount of times, like we need to be that. And we knew who was going with what type of information. So I felt prepared. I felt like we knew the business well. I felt like we were going to be able to, you know, connect and tell our story well. The part that was, you know, we got nervous. You go out, you sit in front of the doors in the actual walkout room, and, you know, you see people walk down. That's true. There's just these doors there. And then the stage, we're at Sony Pictures, huge set, and it's like super loud. And then it just gets quiet. And the stage manager's right in front of us. And all of a sudden, like there's a moment he'll just say, go, and the doors open. And then you walk out and then you like stand in front of the sharks for 30 seconds and do a stare down with them. But right before those doors opened, like, all I'm thinking about in my head is like my lines, like, don't forget your two, like, and I'm like, okay, this is challenging. And so I'm just saying my lines. Well, anyways, Mike's standing next to me, and we like give each other a hug, and we're just like, man, have fun. And he just has this moment where he just starts dancing. Like he just starts like letting it rip, like hands above, just like going like, and it's like quiet on the set, doors are about to open. I look over and I'm like, oh man, this guy's in it right now. Well, come to find out, like he got so nervous, like he forgot his lines. He was like, I don't know my lines. Like I completely forgot. So all he could think of is like, just dance. Like that was the only thing. And it calmed him down. And then he went out and nailed his lines. But it was like, I always want to see that, because there was a camera on us. And I'm wondering what that behind the scenes video would look like of Mike just like standing there, just like, because the stage manager is like watching us, like, because I'm just laughing at Mike, like just kind of doing it. And Mike's just ripping with dancing him. So anyways, if that video ever comes out, I think would be a really funny, I'm sure there's so many behind the scenes Shark Tank, like behind those doors of people having like moments of nervousness or like elation or whatever the pre walkout jitters was. But that was ours, was, you know, Mike breaking out into dance moves.
That's amazing, dude. That's a really cool story, man. That's special. Well, what did that exposure on that show actually do to the business from just a, you know, an awareness standpoint? Did it help?
It did. We saw immediate web traffic. You know, our sales, you know, it was our best week we ever did in sales. We had good traction. So it wasn't like it knocked the roof off and we hadn't seen that before, but it was a great week of sales. You know, the biggest thing is just the SEO bump. You know, there's this like wave of of articles that get written and just stories and publications that get linked to our site and or like in our company. So I think that's like the real value, like long term, that got created there. We'll always have the as seen on Shark Tank. So that's been big with like, digital agency side to things. It's just a real big social proofing for us.
Sure.
So yeah, it's been, I think we saw the kick of it at, that week after. It's kind of come back down to earth a bit, but it was, I was impressed with the amount of exposure that show still brings. Obviously, it's on its 13th season. Shark Tank's probably not what it was in season 2 or 3 or 4, but it still has a major draw and a major pull, which was really cool to see.
That is cool to see. Where is this company headed? What are some of the visions for the future, and where do you guys plan to go?
Yeah, I think it's a unique thing where there's a new modality coming online for health and wellness. Like cold plunging wasn't this common like thing. It's maybe what sauna was 20 something years ago in the US, 10 years ago, where it's just a conversation like, oh, wow, it's like such an anomaly that you have a sauna, where now a lot more people are having sauna. Sauna is a part of most workout processes. So we're in that conversation with cold plunging. And that's our mission, is that this is, whether it's in a commercial facility that's right next to you that everyone can get into, or it's at someone's house. And this is just what you have at your house if you're into health and wellness. So that's where we're going, like big picture. I think we have some new products we're going to be rolling out. We are going to actually be entering the sauna space here sooner than later. So we're in development of that product right now. Always looking to improve the product. So, the plunge itself, it's never like, we're proud and think it's awesome right now, and we want to find ways to make it even better. International, we want to take the product more international at some point. So, we've been really focused right now of just streamlining getting better at our internal processes. We grew so fast, and we moved into our newest facility here. So our production processes, and that's been a real focus point right now. But I think big picture, man, it's like, yeah, we want this to be not a fringe thing that people do, but like right now it's doing really well in the fitness space and CrossFit and some of these entrepreneurship communities. We want this to be like, everyone understands the power of getting cold, whether they have a plunge or not. That's kind of past the point. It's more of getting into cold water really impacts and has a massive, can change your life. So I think that's our big picture where we're going.
No, I love it. I mean, it's definitely taken a lot of traction, like we kind of spoke about briefly, but I just think the whole industry, the recovery industry itself is just booming. And I think it's only going to go up from here. I think more and more people are going to get in tune with that, whether it be wearables like Whoop or recovery tactics like cold exposure or sauna, like all that stuff, I think is going to amplify as people get more into taking care of their bodies and seeing how that applies too. And this is kind of what I want to talk about next, is the actual benefits of what you guys are putting out there. So what are like the actual benefits, pure science behind, cold exposure and why you should do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, it comes down to like nervous system regulation. So it's like you get into a plunge, our nervous system responds to adrenaline, and, adrenaline internally is the same exact thing as if you're, getting chased in the wilderness by a bear, you're getting screamed at by, someone on the street, you're getting honked at. Like your body has the same response. It's a stress mechanism. You go into, like, we are either in like a parasympathetic or a sympathetic state, and both are important to be in. But right now, I think in our world, there's an out of balance with our sympathetic state, which is our fight or flight state. We're in a lot more chronic stress. That's an issue that's happening. So we need to kind of rebalance that and get into what they call a parasympathetic state. Well, why I bring all that up is the plunge. When you get into that environment, it's like it's an environment that triggers that stress response. Well, the magic of that is when you can be in that and trigger the stress response as a safe environment, that you actually know I'm safe, but you can learn to breathe, and your body can actually start to get back. It'll naturally start to balance. If you can breathe, bring your heart rate down during that process, stay in ideally for 2 to 3 minutes, I mean, when you get into a cold plunge, the first 10 seconds are always the most intense. That's the time your body wants to get out. Well, if you can get into that 45 seconds to a minute, your nervous system calms down. Well, the downstream of impacts of that are massive. From a guy's standpoint, like your nervous system has a massive impact on your hormones. For me, I tested a year ago, a little over a year ago, about 14, 15 months ago. My testosterone was and I retested about a month and a half ago. My testosterone doubled over this last year. And that's, like just as a guy, as a 36-year-old dude, that's something I look at. When I was younger, testosterone was fine. Now it's for a guy that's had a massive impact on me. How we respond to stress impacts our immune system. The more resilient that system is, the better that's going to be from an immune system standpoint. So I think those are some huge benefits that are right there. I think from a mental health side of things, it is, the return on investment and like the return on time that you can get from getting into something for 3 minutes, and the shift that you can feel from a mood standpoint is pretty incredible. That goes into the dopamine side. Andrew Huberman's putting a ton of work out on this right now into what cold plunging is doing with dopamine. And dopamine's kind of cold plunging has shown that dopamine, when you cold plunge, it increases your free radical, it increases your levels of dopamine. Your dopamine goes up. So, that's going to be, from a mental health side, huge differences. I think this is a little less quantifiable from a side, like those are all like things that have been shown. Wim Hof has shown that through his breath work and cold exposure of what that's done with the immune system in clinical settings. But outside of that, I think there's something really powerful to like so I wake up every morning and I cold plunge, and every morning I don't want to, and every morning I go and I do it. But I know, like, I can discern that there's good on the end of this. It's not just like I'm going to feel good. It's like, I know this is good for me to do. So I do the hard thing and I get the result. Well, there is some downstream impact of, neuroplasticity that's taking place of like us and how we are wired to do challenging and difficult things. Like that is, I am rewiring that every single morning. I have a narrative that says, no, I can't do this. I don't want to. Well, that every morning I still don't want to, but the bullshit meter in me goes off quicker. I know, like, you're going to do this, man. So like that to me is, like I said, I don't know how that's really been studied in some setting yet, but we hear that consistently. We hear it's a confidence builder, like whatever, like there's something happening there with people doing this. And the thing that's so cool to me is like, there's the paradigm of like pharmaceuticals where you take a pill and you get a result. Cold plunging is like you do the thing and you get the result in 3 minutes, but it's not like you have to go work out or even breath work. You got to like breathe and do the experience. Cold plunging, you literally just need to get into water and just be in the water. Like it's the hard part of like the initial engagement with the water, but you don't even have to do anything in it. You just need to lay there, and you're 3 minutes and you're done and you're reaping all the benefits of it. So I think there's just something that's what I'm so excited on, is this new shift of what this can do to human health in this, in such it's still something challenging. You have to do the challenging thing. That will never get old. And that's what's interesting, but you can get it in such a quick amount of time. That's something I'm super bullish on. Outside of that benefits, we've seen, like I said, a lot of hormonal impacts. We've seen people with we had a customer with long haul COVID that was, year after gotten COVID, was in clinical studies. They didn't know what was going on with this guy. And, had taken every drug under the books to kind of, this pharmaceutical to that to try and balance him out. He gets a plunge for a week. Within a week, it was the first time his Whoop scores had ever gotten into the green for recovery. And he was just like, I have tried everything. And so, what happened there specifically to him, I don't know, but the plunge, was able to be a process to get him into some level of homeostasis. So it's a powerful thing, man. And it does different things to different people, kind of meets you where you're at. But I think it really comes down back to that original point that I made, was like our autonomic nervous system. And, when you can get that into balance, that's that's when the magic happens. And, metrics on that of what you can look for is like HRV. That's a number that is going to vary per person. It's your heart rate variability. And you can track that on Aura and Whoop and these different wearables. But that number, the Plunge is going to have a direct impact on that number. And that number is going to represent your recovery score, basically how intact your nervous system is. And like what your parasympathetic and your sympathetic state, your flight and fight and your rest and digest state. So if those are in balance, your HRV is going to go up. The Plunge has a direct impact on that. So yeah, I mean, those are the ones I get super excited on, of the benefits of people.
No, I love it, man. And I'm super interested. Obviously playing college basketball, we would get in the cold tub after practice, after games. They would tell us to just get in there. They didn't really explain why. They're like, our coaches would make us do it. And I get it. Like, obviously there's a ton of just like physical benefits you're going to get with recovery and everything. But to me, like you kind of touched on, I view it more as like, I want to do this because of the mental side of things. Like we had Josh Bridges on our podcast a few months ago, and he talked about the same thing you did. Like, I do it every morning to win the day. And I challenge myself, and I want to do something uncomfortable. And I think it's like lifting weights. It's like whatever. It's the same thing across the board. If you want to grow, if you want to get better, you have to put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable so you can experience that growth. And I think, if you can experience growth in a way that you're also getting all these other massive benefits, dude, like it's a no-brainer. I mean, I truly think so.
Totally, man. It's been like you talked about, like the morning. Another thing that pops up is like my girlfriend and I do it every morning. It's a new ritual. It's a new ritual that we do together, and she gets in, I count her time, I get in, and then we, high five, and it's like, fuck yeah, let's go. It's just this, it's a real, it's a solo experience, but it really is like a camaraderie thing you can get into as well.
Sure, no doubt. So you referenced the number 3 minutes a lot. Is that the ideal time you should be in cold water? What are the kind of, I'm sure there's a spectrum there, but what is kind of the ideal bang for your buck scale there?
I would say like 2 minutes is like the real time. It's important that when you get in, you choose to get out. And what I mean by that is, if you get in and you just are overly stressed out and get back out, like you're not getting the job done. Like you need to get in there, and there's a point. You get to really listen to your body, and it's usually around 45 seconds to a minute. It can vary for people. When your breath starts to slow down, your heart rate starts to drop, and you'll literally feel your body just kind of shift, like, oh, okay, like I'm adapting to this environment. And that's what you're looking for. That's like the real, the WIM community, it's 2 minutes. Like, get in for 2 minutes at that temperature that takes your breath away, and that it does. Some people, that could even be just like 55 to 57 degrees. Like, that's actually pretty cold. That's cold water. Like when we were on Shark Tank, Robert was in at 55 degrees, and everyone saw that scream. And so he was, some people hear that temp and they're like, is that cold? Is that not cold? I'm like, that's cold water. Like, that will take your breath away, especially if you're starting out. So yeah, I think 2 minutes is a good time. Some days you go longer and you're going to have a little different impact. It's kind of like the gym, when you get into the gym, you haven't been working out, just get in, work out, sweat, get your muscles working. Like, you don't need to go do the insane, Division I level athlete type workout. It's like, you're just getting your body going. Well, most of our bodies aren't accustomed to cold water. So, and it's more of our nervous system. That's the muscle we're working out. So it's not used to that. So get in for two minutes, get in, get your breath going at a temperature of 55, 59 degrees, set it for there, get going. And then you'll just get stronger, and you're going to naturally change your workout out. And that might be, you know what, today I'm going 5 minutes, or, we call it dose and duration, or the dose is the temperature. And so you start to lower the temp, just take the temp down a couple degrees every few weeks. Your body's going to tell you if you're getting a little too comfortable in there. And you could do different types of workouts. You could do Get in for 1 minute, hop out, stand there for a minute, get back in for a minute, do cycles, do sets with it. There's different ways to incorporate to kind of have the body have a different response. So, but yeah, 2 minutes for anyone starting out, like don't make it complicated. Find a temperature that you're like your breath, you lose your breath, find your breath. You really want to focus on that exhale. When you inhale, it's kind of a stress on the body that gets us, that raises our heart rate. Out, exhale is going to lower our heart rate. So when we're breathing, obviously we got to take in oxygen. So trying to do about at least a double time on the exhale is going to help lower the heart rate. Have that, get into that spot where you start to feel your body really settle in and start to surrender.
Dude, I'm calling Devin right after this because he put me at 40 degrees. He tried to freeze me, bro.
Dude, I mean, that's like, I like it too. Like there's something to, I mean, here's my thoughts. Like if you got the one-off experience, go for the 40. If you're building your practice, you got to find what's going to get you back in. You know what I mean? And so, yes, we did a Wim Hof workshop with our company. And, about half our team plunges all the time and the other half doesn't. And, the half that didn't, they all did 39 degrees. They were all getting in, but they did it one time and they were fine. Like everyone could do something in community, a hard thing one time, but it's like the real game, which is like, can you get up and practice every single day? Can you get up and practice when no one's watching and it's just you? And then what is that? Like, what is actually going to get you into the gym? And so that's, that's why I always say, like, play the long game. Like you're not going pro next week. Like this is a lifetime experience, lifetime practice that we're, looking to incorporate. So we're big with our customers of, find a temperature that you're going to show up again and do it tomorrow and not burn yourself out.
I love it. Last question, man. I want to wrap this thing up. You've been incredible. What is your position on ice, just cold ice exposure or cold tubbing versus contrast baths? And what are kind of the main differences and which one do you think is more ideal?
So like you're saying hot and cold or just straight cold?
Yeah, exactly. Because early in my career, I was always told get in the cold tub, just do cold. And then on the later half, I started mixing in some contrast therapy, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are there, or even like, the sauna cold, because I know a lot that's become a bigger thing. Eric Hinman, different guys are kind of promoting that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it does different things. I think doing hot and cold's great. Like it just, you got to be clear on what you're doing it for. Like, if you're doing it for like, you can do it for a calorie crunch, take your body from one state to the other, like, and just get your like metabolism really going from going from hot to cold. Like that's great. From getting in the cold, you're basically constricting your blood flow. So you're lessening the blood flow. So it's actually like, if you have like a massive injury that just took place, you actually want to be getting blood flow to that area. So to get into the cold immediately might not be the move. It actually might be getting into hot water because you want to increase that. You want to get the body to start doing what it needs to do, and it's going to go heal that area. So you get the hot, it makes your blood vessels larger, and you're going to get more blood to the area that needs to go. So it really varies into, are you doing it for a, like, if you're doing it to sweat, like I love contrast. Like I love it. The feeling of it to go from hot. I was just doing it 2 nights ago at my friend's house. He had a hot tub and a cold tub, and we were going back and forth, and I felt incredible. It's just a different stressor on the body. It's more stressful on the body to be taking it from, body temperature getting higher to core body temperature getting lower. It's a lot of work the body's putting in. So it's not just to be aware to that's like a very active recovery day. It's not like a full on recovery day that's just like, I just kind of chill and let my body chill. It's like the body's still working a lot during that. But yeah, I mean, I think contrast is great in the correct circumstances, and cold as a standalone is, it's great for pain management too, because that is going to numb out some of those like cells that are impacted. It's going to help lower inflammation, which in turn is going to, lower any pain we're dealing with. So they both have their time and place.
I love it, man. Ryan, thank you so much for doing this. You've been incredible. Next time I'm in California, we are definitely plunging. We have to do that.
Can't wait till you're out here, man. It was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Go. Thank you so much.